All right, it's 6:20. I'd like to call to order the meeting of the Judiciary Personnel and Licensing Committee. Myself and Trustee Stokerbrand are present. Trustee Lynn's not available right now. We have one item of business, consider new 2024-2025 alcohol licenses for Asian Garden Restaurant, DBA Asian Garden Restaurant, 3600 Oakland Avenue. And Buller Oakland Corp. DBA Corner Liquor, 4000 North Oakland Avenue. That is the one piece of business. Any discussion?
I did have a question. These licenses, do we have anything else available? Someone opened, would these apply to someone, let's say someone wanted to open a restaurant in Shorewood, would this take the place of one of those licenses? Well, obviously the Asian Garden one would, but I'm wondering about.
Oh, do you mean, I'm sorry, is like the one of the businesses taking place of another business?
Yeah.
Not the one at 4007. It's a vacant space right now in between Sage and Anytime Fitness, I think it is.
Right.
So they're not taking the place of an existing business.
But I mean, license availability is restricted for
Mhm.
the alcohol licenses. And so where are we with our quota of
Oh, I
licenses?
see. Yes, I'll bring that up real quick. I'm sorry. So, they are both going for the Class B. If those two, well, because one is taking place of Asia or East Garden, it would be two available for the Class B intoxicating liquor malt beverage, and then the class. There would still be two additional licenses available. So Asian Garden is replacing East Garden in terms of location, which would make, if the second one approved, it would make 12 or 14 licenses.
So there would still be two licenses available.
Correct.
For potential new business.
Potential new, yes.
And then the Bular doing business as Corner Liquor is Class A.
Thank you. So Class A would be two existing ones. And we don't have any, we have Class A, which are quote, Class A, unquote, and we have Class, quote, A, unquote. The one is intoxicating liquor, one is malt beverage. We have none for the Class A malt beverage. So there's four, which would make it three if they were approved.
I'm confused. So right now, of the type of permits that the the Corner Liquor wants, there are two existing right now. Is that what you said?
I misspoke. I was
Okay.
speaking of Class B. So
Okay.
if the didn't go scroll up to Class A, if we went to the Class A, there would be two existing in the Class A. And in the Class A with the malt beverage, there would be three.
Is that the
there's-
cider in parentheses? That's
It's fermented beverage.
Class A liquor and Class A liquor cider.
Mhm.
Difference between those is one is malt. And so we already have some of these in the village. Do we not?
We do, we have, did you want me to tell you the names or?
Are there a lot?
3,
Yeah, please.
Russian Foods,
Okay.
Walgreens, North Shore, Healthcare, doing business as North
Okay.
Shore Pharmacy.
And so this would be the same as those. And then
Mhm.
if this place takes that fourth license, would there be any others if somebody else wanted one? Or is this the last one available?
There'll be 2 other
There'd be
available.
2 left
Correct.
for a total of
6.
6. I guess my concerns are that this is so close to the school. That's my only concern. I guess when we were doing the zoning, we didn't really anticipate, an active storefront selling alcohol and tobacco is not, I guess, what we had hoped. And I think there could be some legitimate concerns about it being so close to the school. Thank you for your help.
Mhm.
Trustee Lynn, anything?
I don't love that it's so close to the school. But I feel a little stuck. I mean, I think when you look at like Riverside High School, there's that liquor store that's right next to it too. And I know my students aren't going there. But it's just kind of the image of it all. I think it's an interesting location. I think at a minimum from here, I think we should send it to the full board, but yeah, that's nothing stopping me from voting on it at this stage.
Okay. Is there a motion?
I move to recommend the licenses as listed to be considered at the June 17, 2024 meeting of the full village board for approval and consideration.
Second.
All right, any further discussion? We have motion and second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right, motion passes unanimously. And that brings to an end the business.
I'll
of-
move to adjourn.
Is there a move to adjourn?
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right, session closes at 6:28.
Good evening, everyone. I would like to call the Committee of the Whole to order for the Shorewood Village Board at 6:31. We have one item on our agenda this evening, which is a report on the city water financial plan. And I will hand it over to Manager Ewald to get us started.
Great. Well, I want to welcome here this evening City Water. We have Tom Nenning and Eric Olsos. I always think I'm going to mispronounce it. But thank you for helping me out there. If both of you want to come and step towards the podium, you're going to have to talk directly into the mic just so we pick it up. But have had the pleasure of working with the both of them, including LNA and members from Public Works over the last couple of months as we've sifted through the PSC report, which I highlight briefly within the scope of the memo. And then, looking towards the future of what lead service line replacements will mean for the water utility. So one word of thoughtful guidance, I guess I'll share for tonight, is that the purpose of getting these projections on paper is so that we have a model that we can work with and adjust every year going forward. So about 2 meetings ago, I said, hey, we're going to be, any board here is going to be talking about LSL for years and years to come. We have the opportunity to talk about it at the beginning and provide framework for how we build and lean into this as we move forward. So before you are projections, with the understanding that each year they change based upon new information and then project planning and more definitive components as we continue to refine the data and look to the future. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Tom and he can walk us through the report.
Thank you very much for having us tonight. I appreciate being here. Before I kind of get started in talking about the narrative that was in your packet, I just kind of want to mention a couple things. First, this has been a collaborative effort on the part of both village staff, utility staff, as was mentioned, their financial consultants, city water, and then some inputs that we've received along the way from DNR and PSC, and our experiences with other municipalities that are in the same boat as well with replacing their private and public lead service laterals. In the packet, this is an all-in approach. So this is not only getting just the lead service laterals, but also looking at our aging infrastructure. And so with that, we know that this is a heavy lift here that we're talking about. So nothing's off the table right now. This is kind of like, we want to give you, this is where we are sitting right now today. And as was mentioned, we've got the opportunity to piece together this framework moving forward here. It's a very dynamic plan. Our model is very dynamic. It's going to change from year to year. And it's all built around how the Public Service Commission of Wisconsin sets the rates for water utilities. So our model is kind of based on, as we put in these inputs for things that we want to do, what is that going to do to our rates? What's that going to do to our rate of return? Because that's what PSC is ultimately looking at, to make sure that water utilities can remain financially healthy during this time frame when they're going through a lot of these changes. So the first driver of this long-range plan is, as we mentioned, is the lead lateral removals. So back in 2022, US EPA came out and said, okay, here's the lead and copper rule revision. And that revision said, we're going to make you do an inventory for every customer's lateral. We're going to make you change your sampling. So instead of just doing a 1 liter sample, we're going to make you do a 1st liter sample and then do up to a 5th liter sample. And they wanted us to report that 5th liter sample. Based on our results, then that would trigger how we would start to replace our lead service lines. They also talk in there about we'd have to do additional sampling instead of once every 3 years. We'd have to do this every year, and then also improve our communications to our customers. Well, even as that was being finalized, there was talk that it's not going far enough. And so in 2022, the village staff did a really good job, and they were proactive in putting together a private lead service line replacement project and getting approval from that with Public Service Commission. Now that allowed the water utility to increase the rates so that we could collect money through the revenues and then offer back to the homeowners a grant. There's a grant that could pay for up to 50% of the private lead service line. And then the homeowner would be responsible for paying the other 50%, which is then they could pay off through a loan that they could take out with the village. So that was all passed. The program that was applied for was for a 20-year period to replace all the lead service laterals. And we would collect about $476,000 annually through our rates to help fund this grant program. Well, as that was going on, and I mentioned the lead and the copper revisions, other entities thought it didn't go far enough, and last year they came out with the lead and copper rule revision improvements. And so the improvements said, we're going to do away with this sampling data to drive your private lead service line replacements. And we're going to use 10 years. Everybody's got to get their lead services out now within 10 years. Well, that's even a bigger ask, right? So we were planning 20, now they're saying 10. There is one provision in the improvements where communities that have a high amount of lead service lines compared to their overall customer base can ask for an extended time frame. So right now, in the improvements, they talk about when you look at that 10-year period and you take your average amount of laterals you need to replace in that 10-year period, and you divide it by the amount of customers you have. If you're over 3.9%, you can apply for a waiver to extend the time frame. Based on our calculations from the inventory that the utility has completed or just about completed, we're thinking that's so going to be somewhere around 8%. So again, we'd be looking at somewhere around about a 20-year period for replacing lead laterals. And as we talked in our group, we thought, is that the proper time frame, knowing that the health risks with lead service lines as well. And so we came up with, hey, what about if we kind of compromise, we do a 15-year replacement plan. So that's what we have in the long range plan, is for 15 years. We have right now 2,478 private or lead service lines at $8,000 a piece for replacing. This is the private side. We're talking about 19.8 million for that, or about $1.3 million of construction would have to be done per year for the next 15 years. Again, 50% of that would be funded through that grant program that was started through PSC. The other 50% would be from homeowners. Then we started taking a look at, okay, well, if we're replacing the lead service lines, what about our aging infrastructure? So that's the second driver in our long range plan. In our public infrastructure, we've got about over 32 miles of water main. 84% of that is at 80 years or older. And so the average life, well, the useful life of a water main right now, industry standard, is between 75 to 100 years. So as we go forward in this 15-year service lateral change out, we're also looking at, well, we really should be doing something with the water mains, because once we get done with that project, we're then going to be onto the water mains for the next, 20 years or so, because they're going to be over 100 years old. So what if we combine the two? We get some economies of scale. We try to bring some of those construction costs down, and we do it all at once. It's a big ask. There's no doubt about it. We're looking to replace about 27.3 miles of water main. We're estimating about $400 a foot. Now that's going to be water main, hydrants, valves, and service laterals on the public side. We'd be looking at about $59 million, or about $3.9 million per year for 15 years. Again, it's a very big ask. The other big ticket item that we have in the long range plan is the relocation of the Oakland Avenue meter pit. That's been on, that's in the long range plan, I think, for 2026 right now. Well, what's that going to do to our customers and our customer rates? And in the packet, I kind of go through what that, what our customer outlook is like. And you can see that the majority of our customers are residential multifamily. They use the most water. They're our most number of customers that we have. So the rates are going to be on the burden of those customers. So we started to take a look at, okay, if this is the 15-year replacement for these service laterals and for the water main, what is that going to look like for our rates? Well, in 2022 was the last time we went with a full rate case, and it was 13.7%. That was implemented in 2023. And so as part of that increase, that private lead service line grant program I talked about, we were allowed to collect $32,000 a year from our rates to help fund that program. That was just a pilot program, as the city was, or the village was just getting started with replacing some of these lead laterals. It was on the water main replacement program that was done last year and then this year as well. Well, we're looking at increasing that funding. Again, we're talking having to fund, half of the $1.3 million per year on service line replacements on the private side. So we'd be looking at increasing that to about $685,800 annually in our rates, just to fund that grant program for the private lead service line. That'd be over a 15-year period. Now we're talking about significantly increasing our water main replacement program as well. Incorporated into that is a new superintendent position that we proposed to help administer all of this construction work that's going to be going on. And the result in our model was we came up with a rate increase in 2025 of about 39.5%. So again, not little amounts here. These are big amounts. Once you do a rate increase, you've got to wait a full calendar year before you can go in and do another rate increase. We didn't think it would be necessary to do one every year. However, we thought, as the cost of providing service to our customers has increased, we would do a simplified rate increase whenever we could, which is about a 5% annual increase, which is a little bit easier for our customers to, budget for. But as we were doing that, we quickly saw that we were going to be in the hole as far as our rate of return in 2029. So we said, by looking at raising rates in 2029 and again in 2032. So again, this is a heavy ask. It's a lot of water infrastructure replacement. Shorewood is at the forefront of this because, one, you're ahead of the curve on a lot of other communities that are looking at this issue right now, but also just as Shorewood started to grow and expand, it was early in the 1900s. And so now a lot of that infrastructure that was put in place is aging and is coming due for replacement. So a lot of other communities will be looking at this probably in the next 20 to 30 years. But you guys are, unfortunately the guinea pigs, I'll say, right now. But it really underscores, the village's commitment to safe, quality, reliable drinking water for our customers, in the future. If we look at just doing the service lines, we had talked about that, but not doing the water mains. We're looking at, potentially having a lot more outages due to more main breaks as that older infrastructure continues to fail. Again, as I mentioned, everything that we've got kind of in our narrative is based on the PSC accounting rules. And so I don't know if we can show the graph of the long-range plan, kind of our financial model. And this was the result of all of the input that we had taken during our meetings. It really is, I don't know if you can show that on the screen, but if you look at that, I thought now would be a good time to maybe kind of break if you have any questions on this, and then we can kind of get into some of the numbers that are in the graph as well to kind of explain kind of how we're kind of coming up with these rate increases and what we need to do moving forward. All right. Just in looking at the financial plan and the numbers that we've had, we're looking at our rates. Again, that's our user fees through our sales of water. Our other revenues, mostly that's from late payment fees. And we get into our expenses, our purchase waters. That's what we're paying Milwaukee for purchasing water from the city of Milwaukee. We did add on a 3% increase per year for that. Again, that's going to fluctuate based on what Milwaukee does with their rates and their rate cases to PSC. Our taxes and tax equivalent, that's the majority of that cost is our pilot payment. So our payment in lieu of taxes. So the water utility pays a tax based on the mill rate back to the general fund based on the value of our infrastructure. And as you go down that 10-year period, you can see that expense really increases. Well, as we're replacing all of our infrastructure, we're replacing mains that got put in 1930s that went in for, less than $10 a foot. We're now replacing with mains that are $400 a foot. So you can see that our value of our plant is going to skyrocket, which means our pilot's going to go up. That is line 7, second line under expenses there. So one of the ways that, when we're talking about these big dollar amounts, the pilot is something to take a look at. It's not governed by Public Service Commission. That is something that you as the village can decide how you want to operate that pilot payment. If you want to cap it for a few years, if you want to freeze it for a little while, if you want to cap it at a certain amount, those are all options that are on the table. We're just showing you if we continue to move forward as we are today, this is what the expenses would be. Our next expense is depreciation. Again, that's going to go up as we start putting more and more higher cost infrastructure in the ground. Our other expenses, that's all of our operation and maintenance expenses. So that's our expense of our guys in the field, our staff in the field doing work, staff in the office doing the billing, things like that. That's all the day-to-day in and out expenses that we have. And then our last expense that we're showing, line 10, is our private lead service line grant expense. And that obviously is a very big number, the $685,800 per year that we'd be collecting in our rates to help fund that program. So those are all big dollar amounts between our revenues and our expenditures. You can see our net operating revenue. And then based on that, that's how PSC is going to calculate that rate of return. And today, PSC's benchmark rate of return for utilities is 6.2%. So when we would go in for a rate increase, that's the number that they're going to shoot for. And we can try to negotiate down for a lower rate of return. But we have to have a pretty good case, and the 10-year financial plan that we're showing here is a good, starting point to start that discussion with PSC to see, do we really need to be at 6.2%? Can we be a little bit lower? But as you see, as we continue to move outward in the years, in 2027, 2028, our rate of return, drops down close to, under 1% there. So that's when, we're triggering another rate case, another full rate case. And that's why we're saying in 2029, we do another rate increase or try to keep that rate of return going. That's not the only item that we want to take a look at in our financial plan. By PSC, that's kind of their number one trigger. The other thing that we want to take a look at is our cash on hand. We want to make sure that we're having at least 90 days of cash on hand in our utilities so that we can help pay for any of our expenses in case something, goes wrong. We have a problem with our billing or our collection system. So we're trying to take a look at that as well in our financial plan. Our revenue coverage that we have shown there, we show a target of 125%. And that'll vary based on the type of loans that we would get to do this work. It could be as low as 1.1 or it could be as high as 1.25. So we're starting out at 1.25. You can kind of see that we get a little hairy there in some of the years. And that's, again, when we start looking at other expenses, things like the pilot, can we freeze that or cap that a little bit to help with our bond coverage? The next line underneath there is our borrowings, and we're showing about an $8 million borrow every other year to help pay for this infrastructure replacement. Again, it's a lot of money. How we are doing that borrowing right now, we just have it as a general obligation loan, and that be at about 4%. Other options that we're exploring, Safe Drinking Water Loan Program through the state is lower than market value. There's the US CPA has what's called a WIFIA loan available as well. Just in a different innovative funding mechanisms that are available to us that, again, nothing's off the table right now. We want to look at it all to see if we can get a better interest rate, a lower interest rate to help lower some of these rate increases that we're showing here right now. And then, again, that's where we show our estimated cash position. That's our 90-day target that we want to try to meet there. And then the last couple of lines here, lines 21 through 26 there, that's our private lead service line project. So that's not only the loans that we're taking out for that, but it's also the repayment of that 50% portion of that private lead service line that the homeowner has to pay for, right? So we're giving them a 4-year or 3-year loan to pay that back. We're getting income in during that time frame from, customers, but we're also paying out more as well. And so we do have a couple of borrowings to help keep the cash flowing in that program as well. There's a lot of information here. It's very detailed that we're trying to get to, but we're really trying to cover all of our bases here as we're getting set to start the building blocks for this program. So thought it'd be a good opportunity to come before you tonight and fill you in on that and kind of answer any questions and get your opinions on what we're talking about here.
Thank you. I know you said that we're on the leading edge of this circumstance. Just wanted to see if you'd had any, if you've worked with any other communities that are kind of in the spot we're at and things that you've learned in terms of, they've learned in terms of, what to do, what not to do as they approach decisions like this.
Yeah, so we've worked with, we're working with a number of other communities. Whitefish Bay, Cudahy, Fox Point, Port Washington. They're kind of, I would say about 6 months behind where you are right now. Other communities in the state that are kind of moving forward with lateral replacement. Well, Wausau is one of them. They are probably the furthest along because they were an accelerator community that US EPA picked. They picked a number of accelerator communities back in 2022 to work with to try to get ahead of this, to find out, okay, what does this program look like? What does it feel like? What do you need to do as far as, construction wise? So Wausau was one of the communities in the area, and they've been at a number of seminars that we've attended. And as they talked about some of their experiences, City of Milwaukee is also going through this right now. They're also another one that's further ahead. They've chosen to just replace the lead laterals and not to do the mains at this time, mainly because it's a really, really big ask for Milwaukee to go through all this as well.
Yeah.
They just don't have the means or the ability to replace water mains with all the lead service laterals that they have to get rid of in the next 10 years. And I don't believe that they would qualify for that extended period.
Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you. I'm just wondering where would all the federal money that we hear is available, where does that come?
So a lot of it comes in through the Safe Drinking Water Loan Program. So the feds will then dole out money to each state, and then each state will then, they've got a application process that we go through, and then they'll do a grading process on that. And then based on the amount of money that they have, then they'll dole out what they have available through their Safe Drinking Water Loan Program. There is a different
Is that part of the BIL?
part of that is part of the BIL, yes. Yep. And then I mentioned before this WIFIA loan, it's a Water Infrastructure Financing Innovation Act that EPA has come up with. That's a different pot of money that they're pulling from as well. And so we're very interested in that one because, again, it's a different pot of money. Shorewood would be considered a small system in that loan, in which case WIFIA would then be able to fund up to 80% of your project cost. Normally, it's only 49%. It's also a non-competitive loan where they have the money available, and if you apply, it's kind of a first come, first serve. If they have it available, they will, and you qualify for it, they can give you the money. Where the Safe Drinking Water Loan Program, there's going to be a lot of communities that are going after this money. And we, it's going to be a competitive process. So there may be some years that we only get half or, quarter of what we might be asking for. So it's going to be imperative that we're kind of out there in front of everybody else asking for the money. And this is just lead service laterals. There's going to be other topics coming up here as well. The PFAS that you might have read about or in the papers for a lot of groundwater communities, that's going to be a huge ask as well.
So this is the worst case scenario here. This plan, the table 4 and all this is if we don't get any other money, right? So could these numbers really improve if we get significant, could we not see these rate increases?
So I would say that it could improve. It definitely can improve because, again, we're kind of being very conservative with our numbers here. How much it can improve, I don't think it would be a 50% drop. It's still a significant ask that we're talking about. Eric's got a little bit more insight
Yeah,
into this.
with some of that funding, the Safe Drinking Water Loan, it's a revolving fund. So that has always been a fund with the state of Wisconsin. A lot of that federal funding from the BIL then went into the Safe Drinking Water Loan Fund. So it's just included in the regular Safe Drinking Water Loan Fund.
So it made it a bigger pot.
Yeah,
But this is the one where
exactly.
you have to go through a rating process.
Yep.
Did I see somewhere that the more you try to fund things through rate increases, the less likely you are to get help?
No, there,
Are they like, would it be better for the government? Are they saying, we'd rather you take the loan, increase your borrowing than take it out on your customers? Is this going to hurt us like a 39% rate increase?
Yeah, so PSC, not that I want to necessarily speak for them. Obviously, they have their own commission but typically PSC likes to see a balanced approach of cash and debt borrowing to fund capital improvements.
Literally 50/50 or?
They don't have they have kind of been shy in listing here's the target. But when you go in for rating increases and you do the full rate case, they look at your ratio of capital equity versus debt borrowing. And I would say in general 50/50 is kind of that goal. Now, what we're showing here, even with these rate increases that you see, I would say what we're showing with these rate increases is really not actually funding any of the replacements with cash. This is rate increases to cover the increased principal and interest payments and the grant that we're offering to homeowners. We're still planning on borrowing the roughly $8 million every other year, which is essentially what we're planning on or showing as replacements. So right now we're showing almost, I don't want to say fully debt funding this, but essentially funding it by debt, whether that's through a municipal general obligation bond, a WIFIA, a safe drinking water loan. The other thing I would mention with the safe drinking water loan is, or WIFIA as well, the savings with those programs are going to come from the reduction in your interest rates. Right now, we're kind of forecasting a 4% as a regular market, rate, general obligation bond. I think safe drinking water loan, and don't hold me to this, but I think it's 55% of the market rate. So, roughly cut it in half. But it would still be a loan. There is a portion of safe drinking water that I don't want to call it the loan program because it's a grant, but there is a portion of that money that communities can apply for and is eligible for principal forgiveness. So essentially it's a loan that they forgive. So it functions as a grant. Shorewood, though, just demographically, that's a very competitive scoring to get that principal forgiveness. And demographically, they go off the American Community Survey and census data. And so when you compare Shorewood to some census tracts in Milwaukee, and population comes into it. So when you look at some communities in Wisconsin that only have 200 people and they have 190 lead laterals, that's where the whole scoring system comes in and is very competitive. So there's money out there for sure in the revolving loan program, but we're showing, what we're showing right now is that, Shorewood may not get, very much or any, principal forgiveness with that loan. It would probably more than likely be a full 100%.
Okay, I just had a couple of things about this, the table 4.
Yep.
So you talk about going for standard 5% every year, but then I see here on your rate increase line, it goes 39.5 and then 0 and then 5 and then 5 and then.
Yeah.
So is that the simple one and this is the conventional one, or?
Yeah. So right now, the 39.5 in 2025, that would be a conventional or a full rate case. And then you're required after every conventional rate case to have the rates in effect for a full calendar year. So in our model, we kind of always show taking a gap year of 0%, because depending on when the effective date of the full rate case is and when you close out your books and do that next annual report, you might not be able to get a simplified application in that following year. So then we're showing right now 5% as the simplified rate increase. Then that would be in like 27, 28, 2031, and I think 34 and 35. As a Class C utility, Shorewood can go in for simplified rate cases. They aren't limited on a time span after their conventional rate cases, but they are limited to a cumulative 40% rate increase. The issue with the simplifieds is that it can be difficult to to project those because that rate increase factor changes on an annual basis. This, the PSC or Public Service Commission sets by March 1st what that rate increase factor will be. So for a number of years, it was as low as 3%. That's the lowest they can set it by state statute. I think just a year and a half ago, or maybe 2 years, it was as high as 8% with inflation. Now it's down to 6%, I think, or 6.5%. I don't remember off the top of my head. So that 5% we're showing is kind of right in the middle of the range. Could be higher, depending on, you know, what happens with inflation. It could be lower. But you can't ask for any more than that simplified. You know, that's kind of the point of the simplified is they say, you know, as long as you meet X, Y, Z, it's a pretty quick process. You just get this blank increase.
Okay, I guess then I think previously we would do a sewer rate increase 1 year and then the next year we do a water rate increase. So what's the plan with that? Is this a policy change we need to consider here?
I don't think it's a policy change. It's how we're looking at the long range financials. So we've not had a situation like the LSL program before. So that's why
Right.
we're taking tonight to really kind of dive into what does that mean in projection of the rates.
And I guess to me, I need context, you know, because this is just, you know, we're all in on a lot of things right now. Probably. We're all in on sewers, streetlights, facilities. It's astonishing. So the 39% increase, there's no way to, you know, I know we just had sewer rate increase. I believe 2020, we did 16%. It has to be this big the first year.
Well, that's what we're showing right now. Now that's assuming, you know, kind of by next year going full into this 15-year replacement schedule. Realistically, we're already almost halfway through 2024. You know, I don't want to speak for everyone or their decision makers, but that might not be very realistic. We're, you know, but when we started this project, we said, well, let's show it as the earliest possible. So that might not be as high depending on if we ease into this, you know, if we, you know, maybe we cut in half that first year and then you do, you know, kind of 2 rate cases closer back together. Now the PSC has also mentioned some interest and nothing officially, but at their latest regulatory seminar just a couple of weeks ago, they have mentioned that they want to encourage utilities to investigate more phased or stepped rate increases. What that means, I don't know. The current rate application process does allow for a 2-step rate approach. So for example, using this 39.5%, you know, it'd be 39.5%, but maybe, you know, it would be 20% in year 1 and then 15.5% in the next year. I've typically seen that with one-time large projects. You know, you're building a new water treatment plant that costs $20 million. We have a number of items that we want to, you know, kind of reach out to PSC and ask if they're considering any internal, you know, policy changes or internal process changes, knowing that so many communities are looking at, you know, really large spending here in what's really a relatively short amount of time.
And well, we all want to get rid of the lead as soon as possible, of course. It's just a concern for us is, of course, our debt, you know, and that's why I can't, you know, until I can see what the debt looks like, projections on debt, you know, because I don't want to leave a village board here after I'm gone wondering how did we get into this spending program with all of this debt, and then we can't have trouble in meeting operating costs. It makes me wonder, can we share this water superintendent job with Whitefish Bay? It makes me wonder, some municipalities contract out their water service, water utility. Before I could sign off on anything like that, I would need to know other options, I guess.
Yeah, this is, and I don't want to cut anyone off. Tom and myself were our background is civil engineers, and we've managed and operated water utilities. So we have learned the PSC system of accounting. So what we are showing in here, we aren't doing any debt schedule projections. We've talked with Baker Tilly a little bit just to get a couple questions answered, but everything we're showing right now is flat debt payments. We aren't running any payment schedules right now. That's one of the advantages of the WIFIA loan program. The federal government will allow you to defer principal payments for up to 5 years after the money is spent. And you're able to craft whatever payment schedule you would like. So if you want to backload it, front load it. So the WIFIA program definitely has the potential to be more flexible if we're looking at repayment schedules and covering, the debt service coverage with revenue.
But just to be clear, the 15-year, the requirement is for lead service laterals, not water main.
Correct.
Water
So,
mains is us going way above and beyond.
yeah, so the requirement is lead service laterals. Now, that is the entire lead service lateral. So Shorewood has the grant, the combination grant and loan program for the private side for homeowners. But it's not just the private side that needs to be replaced. The public side will still need to be replaced as well. So those, I think it was roughly 2,700. I don't have the number right here, but if there's, 2,700 on the private side, and I think we said 8,000 per lateral, that's matching on the public side. Ballpark, So even without the mains, you're still looking at a fairly significant public, infrastructure investment that's still going to require some borrowing.
So the 19.8 is the private lead service, but that doesn't include the public part of it. So
Correct.
if you just did that and we waited on the water mains a little bit, what would that number?
Yeah, so we haven't, shown that right now. We wanted to show, as you said, kind of the worst case, and get feedback to see where we want to look at. Yeah, that 19.8 million on the private side, roughly ballpark, that's matching on the public side.
Yeah. Here on this. So we did talk about that in our meetings, can we just do the lateral only, the public and the private side? The issue that we have with that is, again, Shorewood is an older community. We don't have a lot of areas that we can go with the water main. If we just did the service laterals, okay, and we put them all back into the old mains, yes, it'd be a lot less expensive. But then when we go to replace that water main in the future, we can't put it in the exact same spot. We have to move it somewhere else. We can't, sometimes we try to put it about 2 feet away, but it's very tight corridors here. So a lot of times we end up moving it across the street. So the money that we pay, that we just paid to relay the public side of that lateral, well, if we flip the main from the east side of the street to the west side of the street, that's okay for the homes on the west side. We'll just cut the lateral in half, but now you've wasted half that lateral, right? You're cutting it off. And now all these other homes on the east side, we've got to now pay to extend their laterals to the new mains. So, in a sense, as we talked about that, we just kind of worked through that process. And what does that mean money-wise? Well, I understand that we're kind of delaying doing the water mains, but then we're getting about, 10 to 15 years worth of life off that public side lateral before we then have to replace half of them again, in a sense. So
Thank you.
it's again,
It's a rock and a hard place.
yes, definitely. Most definitely. That's a very good question.
Yeah, to chime on there to what Tom said as well. We were also looking at, doing everything at once. You're getting some shared costs with the restoration. You're only disturbing the roadway once. To do laterals, especially as dense as Shorewood is, you're going to be digging a hole in the road every 30 to 50 feet. And so if you're just looking at patching that's a bumpy road for a number of years. Or if you're still going to mill and overlay the whole road, well, now you have to mill and overlay it again in 10 years if you're delaying them. Now there's other potential options out there, lining, but even if you delay and line later, you still are going to have to do some excavation at hydrants and valves. So yeah, like you said, it's a rock and a hard place. We're trying to show what we think is the maybe most aggressive schedule in terms of funding, replacing as much as we can in a 15-year period. And just trying to show, that this is what it could be. Not saying, obviously Tom and I aren't the ones making the decisions here, but wanted to share this information because there's a lot of information to consider. And as Tom said, there's still moving parts. The lead and copper rule, the improvements on the revisions to the lead and copper rule still have not been officially finalized. So there's still some gray areas. The DNR hasn't fully issued, all of their recommendations or all the code for Wisconsin yet, because they're waiting for the federal EPA to officially adopt the new language. So it's very dynamic, as I'm sure you guys are aware, with the last 3 or 4 years with the pandemic, supply chain costs have really escalated. Costs are very variable right now. In a great scenario, what we're forecasting on a per foot basis would decrease. In a great world, then it would go back to pre-pandemic levels. I don't know if that's going to be the case, but as Tom and Rebecca alluded to, this is we're crafting a document that's meant to be a living document. It's meant to be updated as we do the annual reports every year, as we get firmer ideas on pricing every year, as we know what the bond market's going to be, and see not just what is this doing next year, but see how is this impacting for 10 years moving out as we go through every year, and just trying to get it so that hopefully there's no big surprises coming down the pipeline, even though it's a big project. We know what we're expecting or getting into.
I think, yeah, I'd like to hear from all the trustees and then also from staff as far as what would be helpful for you. And we have less than 15 minutes.
Thank you for all this great information. It's a lot to digest. So, and I apologize if this was kind of answered, but, looking at table 4, just the rate increase or the rate impact, as we get to 2020, 2035, after the project sort of starts to come to a close, do you see rates decreasing, or is this cap? Is this where we're going to be from now on?
Yeah, that's a great question. Because we're showing that we're paying for a lot of this infrastructure with borrowing, unless there are other expenses that we aren't showing right now, and who knows what may happen 20 years from now. But as those principal and interest payments on those large borrowings come off the books, there's definitely the possibility or the potential to go back to the PSC and basically apply for a rate reduction, instead of a rating.
The other aspect to that is we're showing a 15-year period for that private lead service line grant program. Again, once that program comes to an end, then that money, we won't need to collect as much money for that as well. So that'll help reduce the rates.
Like in 2041, we could close the PLS.
Yeah. Yep. So for sure that, the PLSLR, the grant portion and the loan portion will be for sure done, after all the lead's out. So,
Theoretically, once everything's paid for, things are paid down, there's a good chance that we could reduce these rates back to maybe 2029 levels or 28 levels. They're definitely not going to go down to 2025 levels, I would assume, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Trustee Lynn, Trustee McGovern, Trustee Kudo.
Yeah, just real quick, I really appreciate the thorough report here. As you mentioned, this is something we've been talking about around here for a few years, in my entire time on the board. And this is a really good, thorough look forward as to what we're dealing with. I mean, I think it's painful. I think we're stuck in a tough place, but I think the difficulty here is that no one did anything until now about this. And so of course it's thrust upon us to do it. and this is the position that we're in. So, I mean, I appreciate all the hard work putting this together and I appreciate the ongoing communication with us and with staff on what this is looking like, because it's a huge project and it's a huge amount of money. So thank you.
Trustee Kudo, trustee McGovern? Any comments, questions?
Not right now, thank you.
No, I'm okay for right now. I can barely speak, so I won't. You guys don't have to listen to me.
All right. Well, thank you for trying. You can email any questions, of course. Okay. So basically what I'm hearing is that, and first of all, echo, thank you. I've been waiting to see this on paper because we've been talking about it for so long and I just knew that we had to start somewhere. So it's really helpful to hear, you know, there's this 10-year federal, there's this kind of 20-year option, but 15 kind of looks at, it seems like the right place to start. What I'm hearing is that basically there are two drivers of why this is such a big lift for us, and it's the age of our community, and then it's also because we made a commitment to subsidize 50% of the private costs by the ordinance that we passed a few years ago. And then there are kind of two possible programs that could impact what these numbers look like in terms of their two loan programs, or the WIFIA and then the Safe Water Drinking Loan. No,
Yeah, safe drinking water loan.
And that really, the only way that would change it is it could get us a lower rate than like a 4% market rate or something. So, okay, so I'm hearing that. And then option wise, the only choice is to do a smaller scope of projects, you know, kind of starting out, but nothing changes the amount we need to do and it doesn't get cheaper the longer you wait. So that's basically what I'm hearing is we could dice it up into smaller pieces, but to change the method or to try to do one without the other, and the longer we stretch it out, there's no decrease. There's no savings really. It's just pushing it off longer.
Mhm.
Okay. Staff, is there anything that you need from us in terms of the next time we look at this, or when would this come back to us?
These numbers are going to be folded into the long-range plan that's going to be presented to you on August 5th. So we're not looking for any direction from the group tonight. The purpose of this meeting was really just to provide an opportunity to deep dive into some of these numbers and go line by line and have an opportunity to speak with both Tom and Eric, who've been instrumental in the development of the plan. So as we continue moving forward, these are the updating and completion of the PSC report and the utility finance plan specifically for water were two items that were accounted for within the water utility budget in 2024. So we'll come to a conclusion of those works, and then I'm sure that we're going to be back in communication following the LRP, because in order to meet timeline for rate increase, we'll be back in front of this board in September with more fine tunes for those numbers.
I think I do have one more question. In terms of if we were going to approach the PSC with a two-step increase, is that something that we need to model out or we need to apply for to be considered for, or?
Yeah, so with the
Okay.
standard PSC application for the rate increase, they do have extra tabs in their application that you can request that. So, you know, if that's the direction that you want to go, we can definitely craft the application that way. And as I mentioned, Tom and I are hoping to speak with PSC on a couple other items as well, but to get some, you know, more questions answered or some clarification, you know, just relating to all this funding.
All right, thank you very much.
Just one clarification. I just want to let the board know that it's fully my intention to have that conversation with City Water and the PSC. The way that they're structured to do conventional rate increases doesn't fit the model for LSL. So anticipate that when we come back to you requesting a rate increase, that will likely be blended with an application that we will submit. So we're going to continue that discussion, but be anticipated for us to do that. And then also know that the PSC hasn't responded yet to an application of that type, which is my understanding. So I'd like to get that guidance and move forward.
Yeah, another really quick thing, and I don't know who the appropriate person is to ask, but I believe it was some member of the ICC was interested in putting forward a piece of legislation about restructuring the PSC and rates, and I have no idea if is there any pending legislation because this affects so many municipalities?
I guess I haven't heard myself. There was nothing mentioned about that or anything similar to that at the recent regulatory update, that PSC and DNR were at. So I don't have any information or don't want to speak into that.
I don't know, maybe the league could, maybe it's worth a question.
I can
All right.
reach out.
Thank you. All right, if there's nothing else at this time, I would take a motion to adjourn.
I would like to ask, if staff is here, I don't know. Here.
Yes.
We get some feedback about contacting Whitefish Bay before we add a position. Could we share a position for a water superintendent if they're looking at the same thing? This looks like an excellent opportunity to start to work together.
Mhm.
How could we do that?
What is the water superintendent position? Is that just for Shorewood? Or are you guys talking about hiring that at City Water?
No, that was put into the budget as a position that is eligible.
Just a village employee, okay.
We had been talking about that position for some time. I think as I envision that, that position would be a full-time position dedicated to the implementation of the increasing drinking water regulations on the village of Shorewood, in particular, helping with the implementation of these very large-scale construction projects. I don't know any of my colleagues who operate with a staff the size of we do, in a community the size of we do, that have the construction load that we have, where it's managed by basically 2 people. I think as I envision such a position, it would be necessary to devote all of the available hours to Shorewood and the task that we have at hand.
I think it's worth, we could certainly reach out. So what I heard from you is that Whitefish Bay and some of the other municipalities that you mentioned may have similar needs in terms of they have lead laterals to replace. We don't know that their demands or the scope of the work is exactly the same or requires the same, or that their staffing requires the same. So to say that we're dealing with the same thing, it's like we're all dealing with lead laterals, but I don't know that we have enough information, but it doesn't mean that we can't ask about the information.
With regards to the position, I believe that it merits a full-time position. I don't believe that our municipality will be best served by any sharing of a position with regards to the water utility, nor in combination with another community, because I don't believe that our same project and program administration may be the same. Even if it were, we do need someone to lead the utilities. And we will not execute these projects correctly and to the best of our ability, and with the people that we have to lead in this area without that position. We have been short I would say, in the utility area for a number of years, and we are literally looking at replacing what built this. And we need someone to assist with that capacity.
This is about affordable housing. Oh, I mean,
Well,
you're
if I
trying to make
may-
the village affordable and.
Well,
adding
how much
staff.
would we even save with half a position of 50 grand? I mean, that's not a lot.
And we're not even close. We will, before we make a decision about a position, we would have a lot more information in front of us. So I guess what I'm hearing is that when we are presented with this item, these considerations should be reflected in that it was thought through. What I'm hearing is a desire to think through different options in case they do exist. And that's what we need to do. But we are many steps away from approving a position. So, but that would be coming to us mid-2025, right?
No, it will be coming to you with the recommended rate increase this year.
Oh, sorry, you probably did say that. So it'll be for next year's budget.
Correct.
Right. So still plenty of time to pull together information and run all these kinds of questions and scenarios. All right. So with that, I would ask for a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Any objections? Hearing none, we stand adjourned at 7:28. Thank you. So. Great. Good evening, everyone. I would like to call the meeting of the village board to order at 7:35. All trustees are present. We have trustee Kudo and trustee McGovern joining us via Zoom this evening. Has this meeting been publicly noticed?
The meeting has been properly noticed and posted according to law.
All right, thank you very much. And so I would also like to acknowledge Pride Month. And so I'm flying the Pride Forward flag in honor of all those in our community who identify. We also have a Juneteenth proclamation this evening that I will move up. And let's see, but maybe we should take the special, actually, I would like to take the Juneteenth meeting proclamation before the special order of business. Are there any objections to that? All right, hearing none. I've asked Clerk Harrell if she would do us the honor of reading the proclamation this evening, and she graciously accepted.
Whereas our country is made up of people from every nation on earth who are declared equal not only in freedom, but also in justice, both of which are essential for a healthy civilization. And whereas a nation was conceived on July 4th, 1776, with the Declaration of Independence, the classic statement being, we hold these truths to be self-evident that all men are created equal and that they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, and among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. And whereas at 2 p.m. on New Year's Day, January 1st, 1863, using his war powers as president, Abraham Lincoln signed the Emancipation Proclamation, providing that all persons held slaves within any state or designated part of a state shall be thenceforth and forever free. And whereas President Lincoln correctly believed slavery to be in violation of the principles of the Declaration of Independence, and that is about abolition represented a new birth of freedom for the United States. And whereas more than 2 years would pass before the news reached African Americans living in Texas, when on June 19th, 1865, Union Major General Gordon Granger and his regiment arrived in Galveston and spread the word that slavery had been abolished. And whereas the following year, the first official Juneteenth celebration took place in Texas and have continued across the United States throughout the years. And whereas Juneteenth is the oldest nationally celebrated commemoration of the ending of slavery, and whereas Juneteenth is an important opportunity to honor the principles of the Declaration of Independence and celebrate the achievements and contributions African Americans have made and continue to make in Wisconsin and across our nation. Now, therefore, be it resolved that I, Ann McKay, President of the Village of Shorewood, do hereby extend greetings and best wishes to all observing June 19th, 2024 as Juneteenth Day, dated at Shorewood, Wisconsin, the 17th day of June, 2024.
Thank you. Thank you very much. And I hope everyone can join us tomorrow morning at 8:30 in front of Village Hall for the flag raising ceremony. All right. So with that, we have, we'll move on to special order of business, of which there's one item this evening, which is an update on RNC, Republican National Convention Emergency Preparedness Planning from Chief Worth.
Thank you. I'd also like to recognize Captain Robleski, who's here and helped author this plan, and he'll actually go over the plan, but I just wanted to address a couple of things in advance of that. And first and foremost, I wanted to say thank you for your budgetary considerations for this year. We have properly procured all of the protective equipment for our officers, for all of our staff that will be out on the road during the Republican National Convention, which I'll refer to as the RNC. Including the protective equipment for our officers that are specially trained in crowd control duties. So thank you for that. I really appreciate that. A couple of the other things that I wanted to address, and it came about in an email today about the expectations of the village trustees' roles, President McKeag's role, and so my expectation for the village trustees is to act as conduits of information. Predominantly, we will share information through the Facebook and our new phone app. And we ask that you be conduits for information in the event that there was some type of information that needed to get out to our constituents quickly, whether it's a road closure or an emergency or some other messaging that we need to get out, and then to support our emergency services and first responders in our efforts to help keep the village of Shorewood safe. President McKeag's role as the village president is that she has the authority by virtue of state statute and village code to declare a local emergency. I provided President McKeag with the documentation of how that goes about, as well as the state statute and village code. President McKeag and Manager Ewald also have an unredacted copy of our emergency operations plan. And it was redacted because there is law enforcement sensitive information in that document that we obviously don't want published, but they have the unredacted copies of that. President McKeag was also provided with the local elected and appointed officials guide provided by FEMA. We are waiting to hear back if the Office of Emergency Management is going to put on a senior elected officials training. We heard midsummer. Well, the RNC is just a couple of weeks away. I did do some follow-up and I'm still waiting to hear if those dates. When I do, I'll pass that on. But if any of the village trustees are interested in this document, I'm happy to share it with you as well. And with that, I will turn it over to Captain Robleski to go over the plan, and we'll answer any questions that you may have at the end of the presentation, and he'll go over it briefly. Last thing I'd like to address is that I will be operationally in charge of the RNC of the department. I'm sorry. Captain Robleski will be acting as the liaison with our Republican National Committee command post for the Milwaukee Police Department, and acting also as the liaison for the North Shore Crowd Control Team. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to him, and then we'll answer any questions that you may have.
Thank you.
Evening. So as you know, the RNC is coming to Milwaukee. The dates of the convention are June 15th or July 15th through the 18th. The operational period for law enforcement will begin on July 14th at 8 a.m. and operate through the 18th. The RNC is expected to bring between 50 and 60,000 guests to the city of Milwaukee, including protesters, including convention goers, including people that just want to be around the area. This is bringing in an estimated 2,000 to 3,000 additional law enforcement officers from across the state or from across the country as well. They'll be here to assist the city of Milwaukee. As you know, Shorewood is part of the North Shore Crowd Control Team, which is headed by Brown Deer. We currently have 6 officers with myself in command of our portion of the team. All of our officers have been trained by the Center for Domestic Preparedness, which is a division of FEMA. And they have received certification through that. It's a 3-day crowd control course put on by them, which is required to be a part of any national security event that the federal government puts on. Our officers are we are supplying 2 officers to the crowd control team each day of the operational period. And that our operation has not been set yet by the RNC Operations Center. All of the operations will be controlled by the city of Milwaukee, and we will receive our orders from them as to where our officers will be deployed and what they will be doing. Outside of the RNC, the Village of Shore Road, the department, we operate under a bunch of assumptions and predictions, possibly with the impact of the RNC on operations. We're anticipating potentially extended response times, disruptions to traffic flow within the village. There's a potential for property damage if we do have large crowds coming up into the area that are disruptive. We want to provide safety and security to the village infrastructure and provide safety and security to our citizens. That's paramount. And we also have to be able to provide mutual aid response to other entities of the North Shore, as well as ourselves. If we prepared for this early on by restricting vacations and discretionary off time during the RNC. So the officers, we're operating at 100% staffing with the exception of regularly scheduled off days. So we are anticipating an increased presence out on the street with our officers, including the officers that we are sending to the RNC. Each one of our crowd control members will be spending at least 2 days down there as part of their operational period to gain the experience that they need. As Chief Forrest said, we are providing our officers with increased protection. Every officer has been supplied with a ballistic helmet, a wooden baton that will be available for them in the village. If we do have issues within the village that are crowd control or RNC related, our requests will go through the RNC Operations Center, and all those officers and assets will be coordinated through the RNC. If it's something that is independent from the RNC operations, Chief Worth would have to make the request to the Brown Deer Police Department, who controls our team, and request permission from the RNC to actually release our team. Outside of that, our normal response would be to be calling mutual aid from the other North Shore communities in which we already have the agreements with. Questions so far? Yes.
When you say that we will have 2 officers that'll spend 2 days downtown as part of the crowd control unit, if I'm getting that right, is it around the clock? So does every shift, or is it primarily daytime hours that you're?
Right now, our unofficial scheduled operational period for our team is from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m.
Okay.
Our officers will be working, they volunteer to work one of their off days. All the expenses from the RNC will be reimbursed to the village. So any straight time or overtime will be reimbursed to the village for the time that our officers spend down. Personal costs. Personnel costs.
And so otherwise the late shift is just normal staffing.
We're staffing all of our shifts. We're operating it as we would normally, just with an increased level of staffing. So we'll have potentially 1 to 2 more officers working out on the street per shift. Rather than that, the operation of the department is remaining the same.
Thank you.
You mentioned
Yes.
that we respond to mutual aid in the North Shore, but also the city?
No,
No.
not in the city. So that we have an agreement with the North Shore where if Whitefish Bay or Bayside, somebody calls for help, we would respond up there to assist them, much as they would come to help us along with UWM. If anything happens in the city, they have all the additional officers and resources, plus Governor Evers is declaring a state of emergency for the state of Wisconsin. So the National Guard is being deployed to the city of Milwaukee as well. So they'll have more than ample resources to deal with any issues within the city, and we don't foresee them calling for help.
I think we're good. You can.
Okay.
Oh, was that all? That,
Oh, I'm sorry.
you could, was there more to continue with? Or no? I thought we interrupted you with questions. I'm sorry.
No, actually, the questions completed the train of thought I was going with.
Oh, okay.
Thank you for all your work on this. It's and good luck. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah,
We don't really anticipate any problems up here in the village, but the city has the potential to, us being so close, it has the potential.
I guess I sort of one question. I was trying to think it through because I know that Glendale really, like, we don't have any hotels that are being utilized, and so it's really Glendale. So, and is there any construction that would divert traffic from, from 43 North to come off and go through Shorewood? I mean, I don't.
There isn't going to be any anticipated construction. Most of it will stop during the RNC as well.
Oh, okay.
The RNC operations is using the highways as conduits for delegates and for officers as well, because they're housing delegates as far away as Chicago and Madison.
Mm-hmm.
So there will be a constant stream of people coming up and down the interstate. So we don't anticipate any closures outside, due to construction route.
Mm-hmm.
But it is summer in Wisconsin.
I know. So that's changing traffic patterns just right there. So, and then I also wanted to say for those of you who did not take the Citizens Academy with us, Captain Mark is fully trained and nationally recognized in crowd control. And so I feel very confident that we're in good hands.
Fantastic. Well, do us proud, guys. Make sure that you show them what the right way to do crowd control is.
Yeah, the last thing I want to add, and again, I just want to thank you, President McKeag, for recognizing Captain Robleski, but as crowd control commander of Milwaukee Police Department with Captain Robleski as my deputy commander when we were both in Milwaukee, I feel very confident in our plan and our planning for our internal police department. And our officers are really looking forward to this opportunity, not only to participate in the RNC, but to be present here in the village and make sure that we ensure the safety of our residents and visitors as well. So thank you.
It sounds like the communication among the North Shore agencies has been outstanding.
It really has. And Mark has been an excellent communicator with the commander from the Brown Deer team, as well as us maintaining our relationships with MPD and their RNC operations as well. So things, at least in our viewpoint for the village, are seamless.
That's great. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Have a good rest of the night.
Okay, thank you. All right, so from there we can move on to item on the wrong screen. Are we at the consent agenda? So it's been brought to my attention that we have the consent agenda items listed correctly. However, we don't have the following item, which is typically items removed from the consent agenda. So I just wanted to check with the attorney how we should proceed if there are items that we want to remove from the consent agenda.
I don't see any problem with it. They're listed as for consideration. Open. Participate.
Okay.
That you can still pull.
Perfect. So we will move forward with the consent agenda. And if anyone wants to pull an item, we will hold it aside and take it after we take action on item 5. So is there a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So moved.
Second.
Motion by trustee Lynn, seconded by trustee Arndorfer. Any discussion?
I'd like to remove D1, DI1, D11,
D1.
D11,
Yep, the alcohol licenses.
the first alcohol license.
Yep, you got it.
Thank you.
Yes, trustee Stokebrand.
I'd like to please pull B as in Betty, C as in cat, and F as in Frank.
All right, anyone else?
5D.
5D, both of them?
renewals. I just wanted to comment.
The whole thing. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that's cleaner. All right. I'm just making sure that. Okay. All those in favor of approving the consent agenda with the exceptions of 5B, C, D, and F, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. We'll now take the items removed from the consent agenda, starting with 5B, consider committee of the whole and regular village board meeting minutes, June 3rd, 2024. Trustee Stokbrand?
Thank you. On the cow, I just want to make it clear, streetlight improvement, all the streetlights within the village, except those on Lake Drive, it should be residential. I just want to make that clear that people, because we're not doing Oakland or Capitol. So if you could please add residential, future facility, village hall placeholder of $500,000 should be 500,000. Refuse trucks, we should make that each 315,000 each, please. I wasn't sure what this trustee Kudo inquired about. We're in the discussion about public works refuse trucks. Inquired about this being more so the need to have these electric vehicles versus this being a desire to have in 2027. Trustee Kudo, is there anything you'd like to add to make that more clear?
I believe what I was asking was if they absolutely had to be replaced in 27 or 28, or if there was more life that we could potentially get out of them, and then we discussed some other things and then came back to that some would last longer, the ones that don't have the actuating arms, the rear load versus the side load, which have a shorter lifespan. But perhaps what I just said wasn't any helpful in clarification, so I apologize.
About how could we just say the timing of replacing various types of vehicles?
That's fine with me, sure.
And then in the actual meeting itself, I just wanted to clarify, Mr. Defke, this is under the public hearing on page 56. I think it's Tom Defke, T-O-M instead of Tim, and it's Linda Larman, L-A-A-R-M-A-N. And then I just wanted to make sure that there was one place where there was a motion, I believe it's on 9 new business. Item C, the policy. Trustee Kudo moved to approve it, and it was seconded by Trustee Ursink. I think we would need to say it passed unanimously on a voice vote, if that's what happened. And my trustee report was about a planning department event on June 6th. Thank you. I'll move to approve the minutes and the cow and the regular meeting minutes.
Is there a second?
Second.
All right, motion to approve by trustee Stokbrand, seconded by trustee Lynn. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. 5C, consider Chris Kegel slow roll special event permit. Trustee Stokbrand?
Yeah, I just wanted to hope that if we could somehow let them know that when they come through, those on bicycles that are 13 and older should not be on the sidewalk. If they could please be reminded to ride in the street.
Would you like to make a motion to approve?
Oh, I'd like to move to approve the Chris Kegel slow roll special event permit.
Second.
Motion by trustee Stokbrand, seconded by trustee Arndorfer. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. 5D, consider new and renewed 2024-2025 alcohol licenses. I believe trustee Arndorfer wanted to make a general comment perhaps, and then I know trustee Kudo wanted to speak to number 1.
Yeah, just on a general note, just talking to Clerk Carroll earlier, and apparently there's been a change in control at Nana, effective to our knowledge today. I think it went week, so they should probably be removed as they would need to it'd be my.
This is not Nana.
There's two memos.
Oh, I
Yeah,
apologize.
Yes, it's renewal.
I apologize. Okay.
I don't see, where's the renewal?
It's the second memo. Under past the. let me find the whole memo.
I see how it's structured. Okay, that's a little confusing. So
Oh,
the heading where it says renewed is one memo. Hmm.
106 of the packet is the renewals. Is that what you're referring to, one of those?
Yeah.
Which one should one be removed?
Nana Fusion Japanese Restaurant.
huh.
Okay, so the motion would be to approve the renewals with the exception of Nana.
Correct.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, motion by trustee Arndorfer, seconded by trustee Stokebrand. Any discussion? Since we don't have that in writing, are we able to take that action?
Kind of Scrolling through. Do you want to? The renewal request.
Nana Fusion, and that's based on a verbal report.
Maybe we could defer it.
Where's,
108, page 108 in
is it?
the, no, it kind of is. You have to click on, it's not really clear, but it's in the agenda on page 108. It's under renewals, but only thing listed is 1 and 2, the new license being asked for. Yeah, it's kind of hard without any information. It's,
Should we just defer that one? Move.
Well, I don't think, problem is the. Problem is. Meeting.
How was the information come about?
It was a voicemail message that I received from the previous owner, letting me know that the newer owner was coming. It's under a new name and ownership. And so I did express to the newer owner that they would not be able to operate until they received board approval, so they were aware of that. But I did ask for the previous owner to send me an email so that she can formally relinquish her license. But I do intend tomorrow morning to put it in DOR to let them know that that license is to be discontinued.
Oh, so the new app.
Correct.
Oh, well then, yeah.
Oh,
no,
just-
Okay,
They can just,
Right.
that's what I was asking for,
Yeah.
but yeah. So I didn't know how to, if it should be a issue in this meeting, so I did bring it up to trustee Arndorfer's attention.
Did they withdraw their application?
No, she just said she's no longer the owner. She sold it and
yeah,
So
because
th-
technically you can't.
no,
What you can do is relinquish it on the contingency. If the subsequent,
We won't accept that here, though. You relinquish, you relinquish.
well, I mean, theoretically, you can. In condition. Okay, so I guess they just relinquish.
Mhm.
We can't act.
So
The other thing they could have done is just so. And they could have.
Well,
Not our
noth-
Do we even have that paperwork that there's a transfer?
No.
I mean, you've got a
No.
voicemail, so
So that's my concern. It seems like this has been noticed in the paper
Mhm.
and that we should take action as presented without, because we don't have anything else in writing.
Mhm.
And then whatever happens next. Because even if the voicemail's intention was to pull this, we don't really have that direction from the owner and it's a property rights issue. it
yeah,
seems
I
like.
mean, it could have been another person, right? Like, I mean, it could theoretically not even have been the owner. But we have no idea unless there's like valid paperwork.
If
Pull
the-
somebody's license.
If the license gets approved, they're not allowed to operate under that license,
Right.
right?
which is
So if the,
fine.
Right.
if the new owner comes in, they're not allowed, they have no licensing associated with that
Right.
current liquor license. So I would say act.
Yeah.
Right. That
And
is what I expressed to her as well.
I would inform them in writing that at whatever such time the new owners come in, not have an alcohol license and therefore cannot sell alcohol
Mhm.
until
Yep.
that's acted on.
Mhm.
They're gonna have to put it out.
Mhm.
Yes, yes, I gave her the application and also gave her the links to the webpage. So
Our
she is
motion and
aware.
Our second can stand and we can
Yeah.
just,
I mean, what was the motion?
So the motion was to approve the renewals with the exception of Nana Fusion. And then there was a second, and then we opened it for discussion and we just had discussion. I would prefer that I would vote no on that. Because I'd rather proceed with everything that we have in writing and take care of that issue separately. For the rare
Friendly amendment,
chance that
you
there's
wanna
been an
change your-
error.
You change his motion to.
You can.
accepting the
I mean,
renewal.
Can I just withdraw
Well,
it or?
You can do whatever. Just let me finish. So if you would like to withdraw, you can withdraw, or otherwise we can take a vote on it and see where it goes.
right,
And
no, I'll withdraw.
Okay. Do you withdraw yours? Okay. So there is no motion on the floor. So is there a motion to approve the renewals as presented?
So moved.
Second.
All right, motion by trustee Ursink, seconded by trustee Stokebrand. Any further discussion on renewals? Hearing none. All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Okay, now we will go back to new business, which is, there are two new license applications that were discussed earlier at committee. Chair of JPNL, would you give a report?
Yes, so there was some concern about item number one, the corner liquor request, just given the proximity to the school. At committee, we voted, unanimously to send it here. I think it's a tough position. I think I appreciate the information, Clerk Hill, about the number of feet that it is from the school. It is technically over 300 feet from the school. But I think it's worth talking about. And I'll just say with item number two, the Asian Garden Restaurant, there was no discussion. That was also unanimously approved.
I will, I'd like to hear from trustee Kudo. I will say, I don't know if everyone saw, but I submitted a question. So village manager circulated some answers to questions that had been submitted by trustees in relation to agenda items this evening. I had submitted one asking if there were any confirming that this applicant met the criteria for the license, and was there any grounds for which we could deny a license that's submitted this way? I know with Plan Commission, if it's a use, there's a list of findings that you can use to deny a use, but that's not what this is. It's a separate license. So, and I believe the response was that there is nothing that the applicant met the criteria and passed all the qualifications to be considered, and there's nothing that we can't deny a license just based on we don't like the business. Is that?
Sure. So Couple of things. Let me back up and kind of give a 30,000 foot view. When you're talking about renewal of licenses that have previously been issued, then there's a property interest that exists there. There's a due process component to evaluation for renewal, and there's certain additional protections of that property interest. However, on initial grant, you have much wider discretion as to whether to grant a license or not. You may be legitimately concerned about how close it might be to the school or whatever that might be, regardless of whether it's 300 feet or not. But if you make a decision on that grounds, it should be consistent with how you've evaluated other similarly situated requests for licenses, and should be based upon some, reason and analysis and discussion. But I do think, just as an example, for example, you have, as I understand it here, you have requests for Class A liquor licenses to sell liquor at convenience store or gas stations / convenience stores, and we don't issue those. So right now, there are not any other liquor licenses, say like across the street, at the gas station from the high school. So saying, we don't want one across the street here either would at least be consistent with that earlier approach. Am I right on that? We do not issue liquor licenses. Okay. So, as long as it's reasoned and, you have any rational basis to not issue it, it's completely at your discretion, in my opinion.
Thank you for that clarification. Trustee Kudo?
It's almost as Attorney Bayer made my argument for me. I took a long look at this application. The applicant seems like a great person. I'm very happy that someone wants to move into that space. I appreciate the police department doing their due diligence and staff doing their due diligence in processing the application. Clerk Harrell and Village Manager Ewald, I appreciate the back and forth over email that we were able to have today. It comes down to this. I don't think that we should be selling hard liquor, within, 310 feet or something of the school. I don't think it's an appropriate use of the space. I don't think we should do it. We have two other liquor stores or two other places that sell liquor, both Metro Market, which is a 1-minute walk from this address, as well as Otto's, which is just over, in the city of Milwaukee, about a half mile away.
And Walgreens.
And Walgreens. So, I have legitimate, I didn't even know Walgreens did. I have legitimate concerns that, this just isn't in the best interest of the village, of the students, of the community. So, regardless, I'll be voting no on this application. For number 2, I have absolutely no problem with the restaurant. It seems lovely. But my main concern is the proximity to the high school, and following with Attorney Bayer's, his points. This falls within what we do for gas stations in equal proximity to the high school. So I don't think it's a stretch. I think it's appropriate. I think, I think that this is what the villagers would expect us to do, is to not put a liquor store across the street from Sherwood High School. And now I'm going to go drink some water. Thank you.
Would you like to make a motion? Or, okay.
I'm happy to make a motion, but I
Okay.
don't want to step on someone else speaking.
Okay.
Just
Trustee Stokbrand?
procedurally, could I just make a motion for item 2 and we could approve that? Because it seems to me there should be 2 separate votes.
Yeah.
Okay. I move to approve the new alcohol license for Asian Garden Restaurant LLC, doing business as Asian Garden Restaurant, 3600 North Oakland Avenue, Shorewood, Wisconsin, as the application stands.
Second.
Motion by trustee Stokbrand, seconded by trustee Ursink. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
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 Motion carries. Is there a motion regarding the other liquor license or is there further discussion?
Just kind of a question, about restricting the location and I know we mentioned the, gas stations, but there is a bar right across the street from that location. Does that impact our argument here and say, and they can come back to us and say, well, yeah, maybe you don't want a liquor store, but you have people drinking, sitting on the street right there.
Which bar?
The Brown
Brown
House
House.
is right
Yeah,
there.
that probably constitutes a restaurant.
Okay,
Because they don't have to, as a restaurant, they don't have to restrict minors from being, unaccompanied minors. You can go in there and get dinner. And there's also a specific exception related to restaurants built into your ordinance and the statute. So restaurants are treated a little bit differently than just straight up liquor stores. So there's at least a difference the way it's treated by the statutes.
okay. And then that's my second question on that is, again, the Walgreens is so close to that location. I mean, what is the criteria that we're saying is not acceptable? Is it just that extra 50 feet? I just feel like before we say no on this, I'd rather be very clear about why we're saying no. Because isn't there some potential that this could get brought back to us and re-requested and or
Board of
or
Appeals?
further?
Would it go to Board of Appeals? Or can it be appealed if it were denied?
Yeah, I don't.
Or could we be sued?
Well, I mean, like I said, there's always that possibility. I mean, but the rights that attach to a renewal of any type of a license in particular liquor licenses are much greater than the discretion that is afforded to a municipal body when they're first deciding whether to grant the license at all. So renewal is different because once you have it, then you have a property interest in it and you cannot have it taken away from you without due process. So there has to be set standards. Again, on the front end though, when you issue, there's authority in case law that says municipality has wide discretion in evaluating how to issue these things. And, they're scarce. There's only so many of them you can issue. And, there's a lot of factors that go into deciding whether to grant them or not. In my opinion, as long as there's a rational basis, for the denial, it's very, very difficult to challenge a legislative act by a body like this. Very, very difficult because the standards are different. It's not the same type of review. And no, in my opinion, would be the Board of Appeals would not be able to review the legislative action by the body.
I would also add that, liquor stores have a reputation. There's actually studies backing it up that liquor stores are associated with crime in a way that other places that sell alcohol, like, grocery stores or bars or restaurants are not. And there's also, it is really close to high school, as Trustee Kudo pointed out, and it's also going to be a vape shop as well. So, for all those reasons, I think this proposal is a little different than some of the existing businesses. And for those reasons, I'll be voting no on this one.
So can I make a motion unless there are others?
I was just going to ask if, since we didn't get forwarded the information that was exchanged via email regarding this, if it could be read into the record, just so we all have the same information to work from. It sounds like you got some really good guidance today.
I don't have it in front of me, but I mean, it's part of the village record. Maybe Clerk Carroll has it. Because it was done over village email. So there's a record of it.
Yes, one moment. Let me bring this up.
That would be
Mr.
great.
Kudo.
Thanks.
Mhm. Let me see. So Trustee Kudo. Let me see, Trustee Kudo. I said, they meet the criteria for a license. Is there any grounds under which we can deny the license? And, the answer was they met all criteria to possess both their alcohol and tobacco licenses. From a PD perspective, there is no record for the applicant prohibitive of their application. As this is a new business application, there are no calls for service. Then, you see, Trustee Kudo noted, I recognize they have met all the criteria. Oh, please advise. And then, I said, I forgot to mention the dimensions in the state statutes and the actual dimensions from the main entrance of 4007 North Oakland to the main entrance of Shorewood High School, and noted that the application to obtain a liquor license from Corner Liquor, in my opinion, met the criteria. I also stated the actual dimensions. One moment, because there was some back and forth. I actually cut and paste the state statute. I'm sorry, I wasn't prepared to read this.
Oh, so I can read, I have the email up in front of me. Of
Thank you.
course. So again, as Trustee Harrell said, Trustee Harrell, it would be lovely to have you as a trustee. As Clerk Harrell said, she gave me the dimensions. Building Inspector Burris was able to go out and from lot line to lot line is 120 feet. From front door to front door is 344 feet. I forgot to mention, given the dimensions stated, so this is Clerk Harrell. I forgot to mention, given the dimensions stated in the state statutes, the actual dimensions from the main entrance of 4007 North Oakland to the main entrance of Shorewood High School, the application to obtain a liquor license for Corner Liquor, in my opinion, does meet all the criteria. My response, even meeting all the criteria, what options do we have to vote no? Which is the same question that was just asked, basically of Attorney Bayer. Clerk Harrell responded, I would imagine the best option would be to request amending the recommended motion in the memo and render an appropriate motion on them individually, which is what we've done. So again, exceptionally helpful, and I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Great. I would take Trustee Stokebrand.
So there's no way of knowing the merchandise mix at this store, except we know it's going to have alcohol and we know it's going to have tobacco, but they could be selling candy bars and toilet paper, right? We just don't know what percentage of, like, if it's going to be all alcohol signs in the front, because that's, we don't,
So you're just saying like a business plan?
yeah, we don't know. We have no right to know. Because it's just.
We could
alcohol.
we could possibly defer it and request that to be resubmitted, I guess, if that were the will of the body.
Is
I know
the
with Plan Commission, because
No.
no.
Trustee
Wait.
Ursink, we know.
Who's the last person on the Zoom? Oh, okay.
I can make a motion unless there's more
Yeah,
discussion.
no, I mean, I just want to say, I mean, I definitely struggled with this one. You know, I mean, it is literally a stone's throw from the campus, which, you know, it's problematic. I'm, you know, really struggling to think of other, you know, high schools or schools that have that sort of proximity to their campus. And just was really drawing a blank when I was like trying to think of comps.
Riverside High School.
Riverside's it's close, yeah. But I think the other thing about this one too is just the vaping aspect. I mean, that it's a serious problem amongst teens. I mean, more so than alcohol. And that's just another aspect that I just gives me pause on this.
Yeah, I mean, I think if we have the discretion, I mean, the question was what kind of discretion we had. It sounds like we have discretion, so I'm comfortable voting no.
And I would just also add, there's probably other locations where a liquor store would work in the village. There have been liquor stores in the village in the past, just not here. So I'm okay voting no on this as concern was that it might come back to get us, but it sounds like we have more discretion than I originally thought going into this. So I'm pleased and relieved to hear that. So
Yeah,
I'd
and I
be-
mean, there is another street between Walgreens and this location. I mean, there is a geographic spatial difference.
So Trustee Kudo, would you like to make that motion? I believe all the discussion has concluded here.
Sure. I move to deny the alcohol license to Bueller Oakland Corporation doing business as Corner Liquor, 4007 North Oakland Avenue, Shorewood, Wisconsin, 53211.
Second.
Motion by Kudo, Trustee Kudo, seconded by Trustee Lynn. Any further discussion? I can support this. I really appreciate the consistency around the gas stations selling liquor. I've always been opposed to that, much to the chagrin of the former mobile owner at Morris, but and also an additional outlet for tobacco. I don't think is necessary too. So once I heard that we do have the discretion to deny, then I can certainly support this. All right, all those in favor, this is just a voice vote. All those in favor of the motion to deny the license as presented, say aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion carries. So the license is denied. Let's see, I believe that, 5F. Trustee Stokbrand.
Yeah, I was wondering if we have a staff report on canceling the regular scheduled meeting.
There was no report included in the packet. At the prior meeting, I had mentioned that if there weren't agenda items for placement on that I would bring it to you on the June 17th meeting for cancellation.
Yes, Trustee Stokbrand.
It seems like there's things from the financial point of view that I was hoping we could see in July. I'm not wedded to a July 1 date or a July 8th or maybe the next July, but I think it's reasonable for us to meet 50% of the time in the summer. I'm wondering, there's just some financial things that we haven't caught up with yet because of the problems we've had with staffing. And so my concern then is we push a lot of stuff to August. I know in new business, the deadline on that is August, in time for the August meeting. I'm concerned about the audit report yet. We have not seen that for 2023. We'll be looking at Q2. It'd be good to see that in July and see the updated long-range financial plan with the stuff we learned tonight. We typically have a budget challenges preview and a capital budget baseline in June. We're behind. So I would advocate meeting and it doesn't have to be the first.
Well, what I might suggest is that we take action on this as it's being requested tonight, and then we can certainly follow up in terms of agenda setting for the rest of the summer and consider all those requests.
But we only have one, are we gonna
Right, I
only
don't-
have one meeting in August then?
Yeah,
Or
no, I'm not, I'm just saying that we're not in a position to set a meeting, an additional meeting in place of July 1 this evening. However, we can take action as requested now. And then as follow-up to this meeting, I can meet with villager manager to assess what the agenda items are and determine from there where we go. So is there a motion to take action as requested this evening to cancel the July 1st? And if that fails, then obviously we will meet on July 1.
I move to cancel the July 2024 regular village board meeting.
Second.
Motion by trustee Arndorfer, seconded by trustee Ursink. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed?
Aye.
Nay.
Motion carries 6-1. So that concludes items removed from the consent agenda. Moving on, item 6, public hearings. We have none this evening. Item 7, citizens to be heard. There are no citizens in attendance. Moving on to new business, 8A, consider RFP for commercial real estate services and utilization of the village engineer for site feasibility analysis. Typically, we have RFPs under consent agenda, but given that this one is coming to the full board, I ask that it be considered as new business. There's a memo in our packet from Village Manager Ewald. I'm assuming that everybody has reviewed that, as well as the RFP that's within the materials, and that anyone with questions has contacted Village Manager to resolve those or to move additional information forward. I know I submitted one the answer was circulated today. Was there anybody else who had questions for Manager Ewald, or is there additional information available that we're not fully aware of now?
The only other inquiry that had come up was what the process was, where we left off in terms of process from June of 2023. I had forwarded that memo
Oh, yeah, I
to the
just-
group as well, which identifies the step that we're talking about tonight.
Thank you. I appreciate that recap. Trustee Ursink?
I can make a motion.
Okay.
So I move to approve the RFP for commercial real estate service and authorize staff to engage the village engineer to provide a feasibility analysis of sites as needed.
Second.
Motion by trustee Ursink, seconded by trustee Lynn. Any discussion? Trustee
Yeah, I just had two questions. The first, and I'm based on my read, I think this is accurate, is that, I mean, is there some kind of requirement to indicate, if there are known environmental issues at the identified site? I guess, how does that work?
Something that we'd work with the broker on,
Yeah.
or the real estate consultant. But we'd want to do our due diligence and look at the site and have an opportunity to receive whatever information the owner has or that's on file.
Okay, and then my other one would be within the scope of this, would they be looking at possible sites just for a full replacement, or would they also be looking at sites for a transfer station?
Both.
Okay, all right.
So I think that's one of the reasons why we're here. We need to see what is available or not available.
Yeah.
So I think all of those concepts will be on the table.
Okay, all right. I just wanted to confirm that piece. Thank you.
Trustee Stokbrand?
Thank you. I am ready to move forward with this, but I would prefer that we do it out of the budget in the part of the 2025 budget process. I think the money that's earmarked here by staff, it's not, would like to see the Monsanto award was given to this village, given to the village based upon a health and wellness threat to the residents. And I would much rather see that money be used, for example, I'm just thinking about that sinkhole in Whitefish Bay. And I'm really grateful that staff reported that they would like to address, doing study of our deep sewer system in 2025. That, to me, because of what happened and the possible threat to the health and safety of residents, for that reason, I would like to not use the Monsanto funds for that and put it towards trying to immediately see if we could get someone to look at the deep sewers in our village. Because if something would happen and we're sitting here on this money and we had an opportunity to avoid what Whitefish Bay is going through right now, I would be a lot more comfortable with that. I also noticed the staff has recommended 130,000 in ARPA funds. If you add that with the Monsanto, we're looking at $300,000. And I would be much more comfortable using that immediately to see if we could start scoping our deep sewers to see if we have potential collapse like that and put this in the 2025 budget. The only other thing that I would say is I would like to see these environmental contamination, soil borings, at the same time that we do that on prospective sites. I think that we owe it to ourselves to find out what's at the site right now, the DPW, so that we have an idea of what's possible there and what moving forward could look like there too. So for those reasons, I think we do need to eventually do this, but I just, with the sinkhole problem, I don't see us using the money that we have right now. The other thing is the ARPA money. We've already spent, I believe over half of the money has gone for public works. They were the first thing we spent money on, was the street sweeper and the leaf collection. So that was over $710,000 out of 1.3 million. I'll vote no.
Thank you. Any further discussion? All right, hearing none. All those in favor say aye.
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 And
Aye.
opposed?
No.
Nay.
Okay, so that's a 5-2 vote. Motion carries. We have additional, the next new business item is 8B, consider policy 48, volunteer committee expenditures. This comes to us from the Community and Business Relations Committee. Should I save you the effort, trustee?
Please, sorry. Thank you. Thank you.
That's pretty dramatic. It's okay. I would have taken. No, I'm just kidding.
I really didn't mean that. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
It does come to us with a full vote of support for approval. The information is in our materials with the associated policy. I hope that everybody has had a chance to read it and submitted questions. Are there additional questions, or did you receive additional information, Manager Ewald, that we should know about? All right. At this time, I would take a motion or questions. And is there anyone from the Community and Business Relations who would like to speak to this matter in place of Trustee Kudo, since he's not well? Is there a motion?
I can make a motion.
Okay.
So I move to approve policy 48, volunteer committee expenditures.
Second.
Any further discussion? Oh, motion by trustee Ursink, seconded by trustee Arndor. For any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
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 Any?
Aye.
Motion carries 7-0. That concludes new business. Moving on to report of village officials, village president. We already read the Juneteenth proclamation. Thank you very much for that. The ICC meeting information is linked in the packet, as is the North Shore Fire Department meeting. I believe the chief did hold a new electeds orientation session about the North Shore Fire Department. If that is ever something that our board wants, the fire chief is always open to coming and providing that in person. I also think that the fire station, the parking lot was being asphalted last week, and so they should be moving in and operable any day now. So that's a huge accomplishment.
Is there an open house date?
I have not received word on that, but we'll forward it if we. And I think they also are very aware of the RNC and have a plan. They have a plan in place, but we're in good shape. And Glendale is most affected because they do have the hotels that are full to capacity with delegates. And that's all that I think I have other things, but I'll hold it this time. Moving on to village trustees. Trustee Ursink.
I just want to say that we had our first farmers market of the season, and it was not only the most amount of vendors, but we had just a very, very nice turnout. Even though we had rain in the morning, I still had a very large turnout, and it was just great to see this event just keep growing. And we really don't do much advertising, and the people just kind of know where it is, and they come. So it's just a beautiful day, and great to support all those local farmers and food producers.
Great, thank you so much. Trustee Stokbrand?
We had not as big of a turnout for the second public information meeting about the parks plan, Atwater circulation plan, the bike and pedestrian master plan, and the comprehensive outdoor recreation plan. But I think when you combine them together, we probably had 75 people at least. I don't know if Bart has told you. I think I felt really good about, first one was in April, the weather's not good. By the time we got to the next one in June, it was apparently the last day of school or something too. So, but I thought it was put those numbers together and it's significant turnout. And then it's my understanding that Bart will be working over the summer to put all the information together so that people can look at it online, I believe. And then there'll be another meeting with recommendations perhaps in September.
Thank you for that update.
If I'm right, Rebecca, you can correct me if I'm wrong.
All right, any other updates or reports? All right, hearing none. Village manager, any report? No report. We have no future items of consideration listed. Is there a motion to adjourn and go into closed session?
So moved. Oh, wait, we need to read the whole thing. Sorry, my bad.
Will we be coming out then to go to adjourn?
Yes.
We'll be going back out of session to adjourn then.
Mm-hmm.
So I move the village board adjourn into closed session pursuant of 19.851G to confer with legal counsel on a strategy regarding pending litigation on previous legal matters involving East Capitol Neighborhood Association versus Village of Shorewood, and pursuant to Wisconsin State Statute 19.851E for the purpose of deliberating or negotiating the investing of public funds to conducting another specified business where competitive or bargaining reason requires a closed session to discuss contract negotiations associated with lead service line replacement and related infrastructure work.
Second.
Okay, motion by trustee Ursink, seconded by, who wants it? Trustee Stokbrand. All right, roll call, please.
Trustee Ursink,
Aye.
trustee McGovern,
Aye.
trustee Kudo,
Aye.
president McKay,
Aye.
trustee Arndorfer,
Aye.
trustee Stokbrand,
Aye.
trustee Lynn.
Aye.
Motion carried 7-0.
All right, I just need a quick. All right, do we have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
Any objections? Hearing none, we stand adjourned at 9:31 p.m. All right, get
Thank
well
you.
soon, Eric. Safe travels back, Matt.
Thank you.
Thank you.